So I want to back up to earlier in your life where you're riding horses. So okay, so you said you showed horses. Were you doing like dressage? Were you jumping? Like what did you do?
So never jumping intentionally.
Okay.
So I showed for the majority of my career. I still ride now.
Yeah.
It's still, something that's near and dear to my heart. But what's called hunter pleasure. So think fox hunting.
Hmm.
You wear like the little pants and the jacket and the boots,
Hmm.
the black boots and the black hat. So you're not going over fences, but the horse and the rider are judged on three different or four different, let's just call them speeds,
Okay.
or we're called gaits. So what's called a walk, a trot, a canter, which is a 3-beat gait,
Right.
and a hand gallop, which is essentially like controlled hauling ass around the
Right.
arena with your horse.
Right.
And then you switch directions and you do it again, which sounds very simple, but the horse has to look a certain way, has to carry itself in a certain way. You have to carry yourself as the operator in a certain way, um, and try not to cause major havoc in the arena with probably 25 to 20 to, anywhere either side of that other horses.
Hmm.
So I did that for a little bit, tapped into some dressage for a period of time, and then also showed what's called sport horse, which is a little bit more based on kind of the horse's athletic prowess
Okay.
performance. Horses that are geared more towards like endurance sports, so cross country jumping,
Hmm.
um, dressage. The horse that's a little bit more athletic in conformation versus more showy,
Yeah.
for lack of a better way to put it. I'm trying to put this in like non-horseman terms, but yeah, did that, and went all over the country, and it was a huge part of our family. I mean, like triathlon, there's a lot of equipment involved, there's travel
Yeah.
involved, there's a lot of time involved. I mean, I played basketball, I took up space in the court, like I told you, uh, for shoot, since I was in elementary school through college, or excuse me, not through college, through high school.
Hmm.
And I loved it, and it was great, and I enjoyed it. But outside of basketball season, I was at the barn. I was practicing. I was taking care of horses,
Hmm.
helping out around the barns, and when we traveled and went to shows, my parents went, my brother went sometimes, and it took us all over, God's good earth. So
Yeah.
part of my life.
Were you, I assume you're working like with one dedicated horse for when you're doing each discipline, right?
Yeah. So, um, my so I got into riding when I was about 6.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, with this being, a more involved sport, both from a time perspective and a financial perspective, once I got to be a little bit older, my parents kind of sat me down. They're like, all right, you're playing the piano, you're dancing, you're doing this, that, and the other thing. If you really want to get involved with horses, like, we need to pick and focus.
Hmm.
So I picked and focused. And when I was 11 or 12, so I'd been involved for quite some time and shown, my love for the sport and also my dedication. So not just going out and riding, but shoveling poop, cleaning around the farm,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Got my first horse, which is an interesting story. I will bore you with for like 2 minutes.
Okay.
So, my trainer at the time, I learned this after the fact, was at a show in Florida, and she called my dad and she was like, "There's a horse down here I think would be a good fit for Ashley. We can bring him up from Florida. She can try him out. If it doesn't work, we take him back to Florida." And I'm like, or my dad was like, "All right, let's try it and see." And so they brought him up with the premise to me as an 11-year-old that they wanted to test drive him to see if they could sell him and market him as a kid-friendly horse. So I rode him for like a month. This was like right before Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, right before Christmas, my trainer looked at me and she said, you know, we found a family. His name was Tango. We found a family for Tango. He'll be leaving in the next couple of days. Go ahead and tell him goodbye. So
Mm-hmm.
walked over and told him goodbye and was like super sad.
Yeah.
Christmas morning rolls around, and we all know how this story ends, but I'll continue the story. I go to the front door, the doorbell had rung, and my trainer's standing there, and I'm like, "What are you doing here?" She's like, "Are you gonna let me in or not?" And so she hung out with us for a little bit, and she told me to go look outside, and I did, and there was this trailer there, and Tango was sticking his head out.
Mm-hmm.
Dumbass me looks at my trainer and says, "Oh, that's so sweet. You brought Tango to like say goodbye one more time before you take him to Pennsylvania or wherever else you were taking him to."
It's Christmas. It's not all coming together yet.
She like whacked me on the back of the head and she's like, "No, he's yours." I'm like, "What?" So he was the horse that I worked with for quite some time. And then he so there's a suitability of horse to rider component, and
Mm-hmm.
I, for all intents and purposes, outgrew him. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly short, but he was, and so we ended up selling Tango to a friend, and there was a girl in the farm that was trying to sell her horse. She was getting ready to go to college, so we ended up getting his name was Bam. So we got Bam from Annie, and that was the horse that I rode from shoot my sophomore year of high school. Yeah, rising sophomore year of high school. Until college. Uh, we still have him. It's a long story, but he's had some pretty significant health issues recently and actually went home not too long ago. We didn't think he was going to be able to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing okay now, with a lot of medicine, and we're just kind of seeing how he does. But,
Yeah.
they become like family
Yeah.
when you work with them that long. But yeah, those are my two.
See, and I'm a big animal lover, so I even know like I took I guess it was technically just dressage lessons and then a semester of driving in college. Well, the college offered it because there was a nearby stable. So this lady just raised American saddlebreds,
Okay.
so that's what we had to work with. Um, but I haven't like since like and I loved it, but like I got attached to like the horse I kind of graduated to. I went through I guess I'll say three horses in the time that I was with her and kind of progressed. His name was Ricky. Um, he was a retired show horse, so a little bit more like the horse they start you out on is real forgiving,
Sure.
but also not going to be super high performance. So he was definitely more like touchy, you know.
Yeah.
So like with the range, I mean, you could like move your pinky to ask him to do something instead of like having to pull it. It's
Right.
just like that very light touch. So I'm curious what you would recommend, like as a casual horse person, very casual, because I don't have the opportunity to ride. Well, what should I do? Like, if I want to ride, but I can't own a horse. Like, what would the average person do, in your opinion?
Yeah. So, you'd want to research different farms in your area. Um, just based on my experience, some farms are really friendly to people coming in for casual lessons every now and then,
Hmm.
or just coming out to the farm and hanging out with the horses. There's some farms that, like triathlon, are more into elite performance, and you're
Hmm.
here to ride and show and compete and eventually buy a horse, and that's it. But I would say in today's market, like most farms are just looking for people that want to ride
Hmm.
and enjoy riding. At least that's what I would hope. And then if you want to get more involved and go down the rabbit trail a little bit more, then sure, that's there for you. So you want to find kind of a farm that fits you and fits your needs. Oftentimes farms offer, lessons. So that would be a good way, kind of as a novice noob, some background to get into it is have a couple of lessons.
Mm.
A nice alternative, and we did this for a while before buying a horse. It's like a car. You can lease a horse. So
Okay.
an existing horse at a farm that may be used for lessons, you can lease from the farm.
So is that
Some
like also it's like fractional ownership, where like you can take it to the trail, but you got to bring it back.
Yeah, you can't just go like buck wild and run into the horizon with the horse and never come back again. Um, so that could vary. You have the ability to ride the horse more or less when you want to.
Mhm.
You do pay for its vet bills, its feed. It's basically your horse. There is usually some fees that are covered by the farm. Um, and then there may be some special agreements where the horse is used for other people's lessons
Mhm.
on occasion. But that's a nice, like, kind of getting your feet wet, getting your feet in the door. Um, in addition to, once you've gone past that, I'm just going to take some casual lessons.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes the sport so much more accessible for so many people because they're little ones that come out to the farm. They're like, I want to ride ponies. And then
Yeah.
next year it's like, no, I want to do gymnastics. So,
Mhm.
you're not going down the slope that you can't get out of it from a financial standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I think we're kind of kindred spirits in a sense, which is why I said in the beginning, like I growing up, I've had so many hobbies. It's like, how do I even find time to do all the things I want to do?
Mhm.
It's like I always try to figure out how can I do this casually. Like I, love to just be able to like, oh, I've got time. Let's go ride on the weekend or something. But it wouldn't be like every week I can take lessons. So I'm always just like, from people in the know, I'm like, how do I get back into this?
Yeah.
Um, so Greg. I don't think you've met Richard, but have you met Richard? Do you know Richard?
I do know Richard. I have not actually met Richard. It's more
Okay,
of like I know him
by
through.
association.
Yes. So interesting story about Richard. And Richard, if you're watching, thank you for the wheels. Um, so when I got my initial bike from Blue Sky, um, over time, Greg, so I was like using the bikes at the gym for power data and giving that to Greg as kind of like an initial, like, where the hell am I from a
Yeah,
fitness standpoint?
right.
And so Richard was selling a set of wheels that had a power tap hub.
Hmm.
Um, and forgive, like, this is why I date Ben because I know nothing hardly about bikes. But but had a power tap hub in the rear wheel. And Greg put me in contact with Richard and said, "Hey, like, would you be interested in buying Richard's wheels? I think it would be really beneficial to have power data on your road bike, and then of course on your trainer, so that way, obviously, I'm not having to go to the gym all the time and ride the damn Pelotons for
Right, right.
fake power data." So that's how I met Richard. And Richard was really sweet. He mailed, packed, put together the set of wheels, gave me the wheel case
Hmm.
carrier thing. Um, and I've used those wheels on my road bike ever since. And it was a game changer at the time for my training and continues to be. But I know Richard through Greg.
Great.
And
Okay. Well,
it's very
the reason I ask is because so Richard is a certified yoga instructor, and on your Instagram profile you say you're a wannabe yogi. So I was like, maybe there's this weird like confluence where Greg, and then maybe you and Richard like do yoga retreats, and so I was trying to like dig down and see if there was any more
I
there.
yoga. I'm not chill enough for yoga. Like I'm still like always trying to find my chill. I am like too extra for the namaste, but I really try hard. And it's something that both from a mental standpoint, a headspace standpoint, and then from like a rehab kind of wellness standpoint,
Mhm.
it's integral to what I do, and I just have to make time for it
Mhm.
with all that goes on up here for my main hustle, my residency. It's really hard oftentimes to clear my headspace. And that's something that I've talked to Greg, as I've had more experience over the last year with racing, a lot of this stuff transpires to my performance, and talked about kind of like getting my head out of my butt and, getting my headspace clear so that, my training shows, full send on race day. But no, I'm forever trying to like be cool and be really good at yoga, but it's a work in progress.
Well, that's like the trick is the hard part because it's like you have to try to not try, but if you're trying, you're not trying. You're not trying. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? So
right.
it's like you just have to not try and let that headspace go. So which is difficult when you're very wrapped up. It reminds me of I had the same problem, and one of my coaches in college, he said to me, and I repeated, I'll call it a quote, but it's a paraphrase. I repeated this quote to an untold number of people. He said, Jesse, do you know why stupid people are so much faster than you? He said, they don't think how much it hurts. They just run.
Yeah.
And that really encompassed all of it because I was like trying to micromanage all my feelings on every. It's like it's good to be in touch with how you feel, but I was like so like I said, micromanaging like every single feeling on every rep on every corner of the train. It was just too much. And he was just like, just stop. Like with all this, just stop, just run. And anytime I'm overthinking, I come back to that quote from him and be like, that's why stupid people are faster than me because they're not thinking so hard.
Yeah. And I think it's hard. I mean, for, type A, oftentimes triathletes,
hmm
those of us who do balance careers and, very headspace necessary, entailing, things on a daily basis, be it teaching, research, medicine, dentistry, whatever, kung fu. Um, Maybe, yeah, that does require the headspace. It's so hard to turn the brain off from the science and
hmm
tune the brain into what is my body feeling or not, just do it. Just go do it. And that's been kind of my mantra as I've gotten more races under my belt. Instead of rolling into race day, being like, okay, is my bike pedal in transition exactly where I want it to be? Are my cleats laid out exactly where they want to be? I'm going to start the run out exactly like this. I'm going to swim this many strokes and then breathe and then sight. No, just go do the damn thing.
hmm
And the times where I've gone out with that mentality, the performance has been heads and shoulders above any time that I've gone into something and just overthought it.
hmm
And that's the case in my residency. That was always the case with riding and competing. In fact, my trainer would oftentimes, like, if she took a heavy sigh and a sip of her coffee, you knew the phrase "just stop" and the face palm coming.
We're coming soon.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, it's something that I think we all were constantly struggling with as nerdy athletes.
hmm I know your boyfriend's probably finishing up with dinner here soon, so
It smells really good.
we're
I wish it had like a scent feature, but it doesn't.
so I kind of want to be mindful of that and make sure you're not going to have a cold dinner. You haven't yet seen this question, I think, because you haven't watched the last part of Greg's episode that's not out yet. But I ask everybody because such a universal thing. If you can only eat one food for recovery for the rest of your life, what do you choose?
Oh my God. I can't say cereal. Um,
We'll go
shoot.
plan B is cereal.
So Greg and I had this joke that I need to eat so I love Goo Energy Stroop waffles.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever had one. If not,
I've
it'll
not,
change.
but I know what it is.
Yeah. So I've like been weaning myself off of those
Okay.
in my training. So I can't say Stroop waffle because otherwise Greg will get angry. Um, but I'm gonna go with, and it's gonna be really weird. but sweet potatoes. I mean, essentially, like it's a complex carb, right? Um, you can do a whole lot of things with it. It's pretty hearty, good beta carotene. And I am like when it comes to like favorite foods, seasons, things like that, I'm like basic white girl. Like I love fall. And sweet potatoes remind me of fall, so I'm gonna go with that.
So that's a solid answer. I haven't think about anybody say sweet potato yet. So mark one up for the sweet potato crowd. Ashley, if people want to follow you, see what you're up to, where can they find you?
Sure. So I feel like really popular right now, which never happens. You can follow me on Instagram. I am DDS double A. You can follow me on Facebook, Ashley Anderson. Um, you can follow me on Strava. It's always entertaining. Again, Ashley Anderson. I am new, so this is the first time I've had Skype on my computer since college. If you want to Skype me on Skype, my email. Um, but yeah, that's call me, beat me, whatever.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming on today, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so I'll stop the recording.
Okay.